If you are over 65, here's the myth I want to break in the first few seconds. Not every slowdown is just aging. Sometimes, your thyroid is quietly turning down the speed of your entire body, while you keep blaming your schedule, your sleep, the weather, or the calendar. Remember this number. 26%, that is how much higher all-cause mortality was in older adults with hypothyroidism in a meta-analysis covering more than 1.1 million people. 26%, that is not a small number. And the part that should unsettle you a little is this. The warning signs are often woven into ordinary life. The extra blanket, the afternoon collapse in your chair, the skipped bowel movement you shrug off, the dry skin you call winter. So let's reframe this the right way. This is not about vanity. It is not about whether your pants feel tighter or whether you feel a little lazy this week. This is about whether you can keep your balance on the stairs, whether your heart and blood vessels are carrying the load they should, whether your brain feels clear enough to follow a conversation, whether you can carry your own groceries, drive safely, remember appointments, and stay independent in your own home. Here's what most people get wrong. They wait for dramatic symptoms. But thyroid decline after 65 is often quiet, subtle, blurry around the edges. The American Thyroid Association notes that in older adults, hypothyroidism may show up in less obvious ways, and sometimes memory loss or slowed thinking is the only thing anyone notices. Up to 1 in 4 nursing home residents may have undiagnosed hypothyroidism. My name is Dr. David Reynolds. I'm an endocrinologist, and for more than 18 years, I've cared for older adults with hormone disorders, published peer-reviewed work, and treated patients whose normal aging turned out to be something much more specific, much more measurable, and in many cases, much more fixable. And let me be clear about something up front. I'm not here to sell you a supplement. I'm not here to scare you into a course. I'm here to help you see patterns that busy appointments sometimes miss, and to give you science-backed questions you can carry into your next visit. Stay with me until the end, because the sign that surprises people most is number 5. It is not weight gain. It is not neck swelling. And in many older adults, it shows up on a lab report before anyone even says the word thyroid. Before we go further, if you're comfortable, drop your age in the comments, or tell me the one number you watch most closely right now. Your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your morning heart rate, your steps. I read every single comment, and it helps me shape these talks around the real worries people carry at home. And if you value calm, evidence-based guidance for healthy aging, subscribe now. Not for hype, for clarity. Let me give you a simple map, because once you understand the map, the science makes sense. Your thyroid is a small gland in the lower front of your neck, but its hormones act like a body-wide instruction signal. Think of thyroid hormone like your home's thermostat, your car's idle speed, and your delivery system manager all at once. First, it sets pace. That is metabolism in plain English. How quickly your cells turn food and oxygen into usable energy. When thyroid hormone falls, the engine idles lower. You feel it as fatigue, slower reflexes, less drive, and sometimes slower thinking. Second, it helps regulate heat. Think of your cells like tiny furnaces. When thyroid levels drop, those furnaces burn lower. You may feel cold in a room that feels perfectly fine to everyone else. Third, it helps traffic move. Your gut moves food forward. Your skin renews itself. Your hair follicles cycle. Your liver clears cholesterol from the bloodstream. When thyroid hormone is low, all of that can drag. Think of your bloodstream like a river delivery system, and your liver like the cleanup crew at the end of the route. If the cleanup crew slows down, more debris stays in the water. Keep those three mechanisms in mind: pace, heat, and traffic. We're going to come back to them again and again. 1. A tiredness that sleep does not fix. This is not the normal kind of tired you earn after gardening, babysitting, or a bad night. This is the kind of fatigue where your body feels heavy before the day has really started. You wake up, and it is as if someone left sandbags on your arms and legs. Sometimes your mind feels slowed too. Not confused, not dramatic, just dulled. Names do not come as quickly. Your motivation feels flat. You keep saying, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just tired all the time." Here's what it does inside you. Low thyroid hormone lowers the resting speed of your cells. Think of your body like an orchestra playing half a beat too slow. The notes are still there, but the music drags. Your muscles produce energy less efficiently. Your brain can feel as if it is working through syrup. That is why older adults may describe hypothyroidism, not with fancy language, but with simple phrases. I feel slower. I need more naps. I just don't have my usual get up and go. In the Colorado Thyroid Disease Prevalence Study, which included more than 25,000 adults, 25% of people with overt hypothyroidism reported 4 or more classic thyroid symptoms, compared with 17% of people with normal thyroid function. That gap matters. But notice the other half of the lesson. Plenty of people with normal thyroid levels also reported similar complaints. That is why fatigue is a quiet sign, not a diagnosis by itself. And I want to add an important layer of honesty here. A large JAMA internal medicine analysis of 23 cohorts and 74,565 participants found that subclinical thyroid dysfunction was not associated with faster cognitive decline or dementia risk. So if you are having a foggy week, do not hear me saying every memory slip is your thyroid. I am not saying that. I am saying that when unusual fatigue and slowed thinking travel with other clues, the thyroid deserves a seat at the table. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Walter, 71 years old, from Columbus. Walter told me the strangest part was not that he was tired. It was that he no longer felt like himself. He used to walk his dog before breakfast, read the paper, and tease his wife over coffee. Then, little by little, he began sitting at the edge of the bed in the morning, elbows on knees, staring at the floorboards. He said his body felt dim. That was his word. Dim. My first reaction wasn't fear. It was frustration. Because he had spent nearly a year assuming this was simply what 71 felt like. His thyroid was low. Not every tired older adult has thyroid disease. But Walter did. Once it was recognized and treated appropriately, he didn't become 25 again. That is not how medicine works. But his mornings came back, and sometimes that is the difference that matters. The consequence if you ignore this sign is simple. You start shrinking your life around your energy. First you stop the morning walk. Then the grocery trip feels too long. Then you cancel dinner because you are worn out. Independence usually does not disappear all at once. It erodes. So what should you do instead? If your energy has been clearly lower for more than 2 to 4 weeks, and especially if you also notice cold sensitivity, constipation, dry skin, or a slower pulse? Ask your physician for a thyroid check that includes TSH and free T4. Ask whether you also need a complete blood count, B12, iron studies, and a metabolic panel, because anemia, sleep issues, depression, medication side effects, and thyroid disease can overlap. If you take biotin, a common hair and nail supplement, stop it for at least 2 to 3 days before thyroid blood work, unless your own doctor tells you otherwise, because it can interfere with some lab assays. Synergy tip: fatigue plus cold intolerance is a more meaningful pattern than fatigue alone. 2. You feel cold when everyone else feels fine. You are sitting in the same living room as everyone else, and yet you are the one reaching for the cardigan. Your feet stay cold in bed. Your hands feel cool when you touch your own face. In summer, you are still asking if the restaurant air conditioning can be turned down. Here's what most people get wrong. They think this is just poor circulation or body type. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is your thermostat. Here's what it does inside you. Thyroid hormone helps your cells turn fuel into heat. Think of each cell like a tiny wood stove. When thyroid hormone is low, the fire burns lower. You still have a stove. It just is not making the same heat. That is why cold intolerance can sneak in before more dramatic symptoms ever do. Major clinical guidance from the NHS, the American Geriatric Society, and the American Thyroid Association all list increased sensitivity to cold as a classic symptom of hypothyroidism, even though older adults may report it less dramatically than younger people. And in a large US prevalence analysis using NHANES and claims data, hypothyroidism in adults 60 and older ranged from roughly 16 to nearly 18%, with especially high burden in the oldest groups. In other words, if you are over 65 and newly cold all the time, this is common enough to take seriously. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Eleanor, 68, from Des Moines. Eleanor laughed when she first mentioned it. She said, "My family thinks I've become a lizard." In July, she was wearing thick socks on hardwood floors and carrying a throw blanket from room to room like a security object. What bothered her most was not the cold itself. It was the way it made her withdraw. She stopped going to outdoor evening dinners because once the sun dropped, she could not get comfortable. She described the feeling in her feet as ice water under the skin. That is a vivid sentence, and those are the kinds of details I listen for. The benefit of catching this sign early is that you may interrupt a longer chain: fatigue, inactivity, lower exercise tolerance, and social withdrawal. The consequence of ignoring it is not just discomfort. It is that you may let a treatable body-wide slowdown keep rolling. So what should you do instead? If feeling colder than usual is new for you, lasts more than a few weeks, and comes with low energy, constipation, dry skin, or a lower than usual heart rate, ask for thyroid testing rather than simply buying thicker socks. Keep the room comfortable, of course. Dress warmly, but do not stop there. If you already take thyroid medication, do not change your dose on your own because you feel cold. Get your labs checked first. Synergy tip: cold hands plus dry skin plus fatigue is a much stronger thyroid story than cold hands by themselves. 3. Your bowels are slower than they used to be. Nobody loves talking about constipation, but your gut tells the truth more often than your pride does. If your bowel movements have become less frequent, harder, or more effortful, and nothing obvious explains it. I want you to pay attention. Here's what it does inside you. Your intestines move food forward with rhythmic muscle activity called motility. Plain language, the squeeze and release motion that keeps traffic moving. Thyroid hormone helps support that timing. Think of your gut like an airport moving walkway. When thyroid hormone is low, the belt slows down. Everything still moves, just not with the same efficiency. Now let me be responsible and precise here. A population-level study of 6,552 participants found constipation prevalence ranging from 1.4% to 11.3% across thyroid groups. And after adjustment, the authors concluded thyroid dysfunction was not strongly associated with constipation in the general population. That matters. It means constipation alone is not a reliable thyroid alarm bell. But when constipation is new, persistent, and paired with fatigue, cold intolerance, dry skin, or a slower pulse, the pattern becomes much more meaningful. That is why I call this a quiet sign. Not because it screams thyroid, because it whispers in context. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Gloria, 76 years old, from Phoenix. Gloria came in bothered by two things she thought were unrelated. She had become constipated, and she had stopped enjoying meals because she always felt full and heavy. She said her kitchen used to smell like toast and coffee in the morning, and now breakfast felt like work. She had also grown colder, more tired, and less interested in her afternoon walk. But the constipation was what finally made her ask for help. Once we put the whole pattern together, the picture was clearer. If you ignore this sign, you may end up treating only the surface. More laxatives, more straining, more discomfort, more bloating, sometimes even hemorrhoids, poor appetite, or reduced fluid intake because you are tired of feeling backed up. So what should you do instead? First, do the basics that protect you, no matter what the cause is. Aim for roughly 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day from food, if your doctor has not restricted it. Drink enough fluid for your medical situation, and take a 10 to 15-minute walk after meals if you're able. Review your medicines, because iron, calcium, some pain pills, and some antacids can slow the bowel. But if constipation is a new change lasting more than 2 to 3 weeks, especially if it arrives with fatigue, cold sensitivity, dry skin, swelling, or slowed thinking, bring up the thyroid specifically. And if you are already on thyroid replacement and the constipation is getting worse, do not assume the medicine stopped working. That may or may not be true. Get checked if this is helping you connect dots that no one has ever laid out clearly. Subscribe and share this with one person you love. I mean that. A sibling, a parent, a spouse, a friend from church. So many older adults get 10 rushed minutes in an appointment, and there is just not enough time to cover the slow, quiet truths that shape daily life. This channel is my attempt to give you the longer conversation. And yes, I read every single comment. 4. Your skin, hair, or eyebrows are changing quietly. Now we come to the sign people often dismiss as cosmetic. Dry skin, coarser skin, more hair in the brush, thinning eyebrows, especially the outer third, brittle nails, hair that feels rougher, not just thinner. Here's what it does inside you. Thyroid hormone helps drive turnover in skin and hair cells. Think of your skin like a brick wall that is constantly being repaired, sealed, and polished. When thyroid hormone drops, the repair crew slows down. Sweat gland activity can decrease. Skin loses some of its softness and moisture. Hair follicles may spend less time in active growth and more time in a resting shedding pattern. In a hospital-based clinical study at SMHS Hospital, a teaching hospital of Government Medical College Srinagar, researchers looked at 460 patients with hypothyroidism. Dry, coarse skin was reported by 65.22%, and diffuse hair loss was observed in 46.09%. That is not a small number. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Denise, 69, from Charlotte. Denise said she first noticed snow on her black cardigan, tiny flakes from dry skin on her forearms. Then she realized the outside edges of her eyebrows had thinned so gradually she had not truly seen it until one morning in bright bathroom light. She ran her fingers through her hair after a shower and came away with more strands than usual. Not handfuls, just enough to make her pause. That is the way thyroid symptoms often work. Not dramatic, accumulative. Here's what most people get wrong. They treat only the surface. New shampoo, better lotion, stronger conditioner. That is fine for comfort, and I do want you comfortable. But if the change is new, widespread, and paired with fatigue, cold sensitivity, constipation, or puffiness, the question is not only, what cream should I use? The question is, why did my skin and hair change in the first place? If you ignore this sign, you may overlook a system-wide problem that is also affecting energy, cholesterol handling, and heart function. If you catch it, the benefit is not just better skin, it is a clearer diagnosis. So what should you do instead? Use a thick, fragrance-free cream or ointment within 3 minutes after bathing. Keep showers warm, not hot, and keep them to about 5 to 10 minutes. Make sure you are getting adequate protein, unless your own physician has restricted it for kidney or other reasons. But if this dryness or shedding is new and persistent, ask for thyroid labs instead of endlessly experimenting with products. Synergy tip: dry skin plus feeling cold is one of the classic pairings I never ignore. 5. Your cholesterol rises or your heart rate slows. For no clear reason, here is the part that should concern you most. And yes, this is the one I told you to stay for. Sometimes the quiet sign is not something you feel first. It is something your lab report tells you, or your watch, or the pulse check at your doctor's office. Unexplained higher cholesterol, a slower resting heart rate than is normal for you, less exercise tolerance on stairs, maybe a little ankle swelling, maybe just less energy. Here's what it does inside you. Think of LDL cholesterol, what many people call bad cholesterol, like trash bags floating down a river. Your liver has receptor sites that pull those bags out of circulation. Thyroid hormone helps keep that cleanup system active. When thyroid hormone is low, fewer bags get pulled out. More cholesterol stays in the bloodstream. At the same time, the heart itself may beat more slowly and pump less forcefully. Think of the heart like a pump set half a notch lower than usual. Harvard Health notes that in older adults, unexplained high cholesterol can sometimes be the only evidence of hypothyroidism. And in a Boston Medical Center study of 8,795 patients with newly diagnosed hyperlipidemia, only 49.5% were checked with a TSH test within about 6 months. Yet 5.2% of those tested had elevated TSH levels consistent with thyroid dysfunction. That means Real cases can hide inside what looks like just cholesterol. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Ray, 74, from Tampa. Ray thought his problem was aging and restaurant food. His LDL had climbed. He was more winded on the stairs to his condo. He said the oddest thing was that his watch kept showing a lower resting pulse, but he had not become more fit. He had become less active. He brought me a folded lab slip from his back pocket, soft from being opened and closed so many times. He had been studying the cholesterol line for weeks. What he needed was a fuller question. Not only, how do we lower this number? But, why did it rise? Here's what most people get wrong. They assume every elevated cholesterol number is purely dietary, and every slower pulse is either good athlete heart or nothing. Sometimes it is. But if a higher cholesterol result arrives alongside fatigue, cold intolerance, constipation, dry skin, or a new slowdown in your daily pace, the thyroid becomes a smart thing to check. And remember the number from the beginning. 26% in the Endocrine Society report on a meta-analysis of 27 published articles involving more than 1.1 million older adults. Overt hypothyroidism in those 60 and older was associated with a 26% higher risk of death from all causes. Again, that is not a small number. So what should you do instead? If your cholesterol is rising without an obvious explanation, ask whether a thyroid panel is appropriate. If your resting heart rate is newly lower than usual for you, especially if you feel tired, cold, puffy, or slow, bring that up too. Do not stop your statin. Do not change heart medications on your own. The right move is not guessing. The right move is checking. Synergy tip. A lab clue plus a body clue is often where the truth reveals itself. Let's bring it all together. Number 1 was the tiredness that sleep does not fix, because low thyroid hormone can lower your cellular pace. The body's engine idles down. Number 2 was feeling cold when other people feel comfortable, because your internal furnaces are producing less heat. The thermostat drifts low. Number 3 was slower bowels, because the gut's moving walkway loses speed. Traffic drags. Number 4 was dry skin, rougher hair, and thinning brows, because the repair and renewal systems in skin and hair slow down. The maintenance crew gets behind. Number 5 was rising cholesterol, or a slower pulse, because the liver's cleanup receptors work less efficiently, and the heart's pacing can ease downward. The river carries more debris, and the pump loses force. That is the pattern: pace, heat, traffic. If you remember those 3 ideas, you will understand why symptoms that seem unrelated can actually belong to the same story. Here's what to do tonight and this week. 1. Tonight, make a short symptom list. Write down any recent changes in energy, cold sensitivity, bowel habits, skin dryness, hair shedding, swelling, mood, memory, heart rate, or cholesterol results. 2. Tonight, look for patterns, not isolated annoyances. One symptom can mean many things. 3 or 4 together mean it is time to pay attention. 3. This week, review your numbers. If you have recent labs, look at your cholesterol. If you track your pulse, compare it with your usual baseline. If you do not know your baseline, start checking once a day at the same time for a week, unless your doctor has given you different instructions. 4. This week, book the right conversation. Ask your physician whether TSH and free T4 testing makes sense for you, especially if these signs are new or progressive. if you are already on thyroid medication. Ask when and how your labs should be checked. 5. This week, review your supplements and medicines. Bring a list: biotin, iron, calcium, and several common medications can complicate testing or timing. 6. This week, do not self-treat blindly. Do not order a random supplement because an ad promised thyroid support. So what should you do instead? Measure first, treat second. That is medicine. I want to end on something bigger than lab values. A healthy thyroid is not about vanity. It is not about chasing youth. It is about function, dignity, range. It is about whether you can carry your own groceries in from the car without sitting down halfway through. It is about whether you can stand in your kitchen and feel steady enough to cook. It is about whether your mind feels clear enough to tell a story at dinner. Remember a grandchild's name without panic. Laugh at the right moment. And enjoy being where you are. I have seen older adults blame themselves for symptoms that were not a character flaw and not some moral failure of discipline. They were dealing with biology. Quiet biology. Biology that needed to be noticed. And once it was noticed, many of them got part of their life back. Not a fantasy, not perfection, but function. Warm hands again. Regular mornings again. Clearer thinking again. More walking. More visiting. More living. So if something in you has been slowing, please do not dismiss yourself too quickly. Here's what most people get wrong. They think paying attention is overreacting. It is not. Paying attention is how you protect your future. It is never too late. If this kind of calm, straight, science-based guidance helps you, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next conversation. And in the comments, tell me this. Which of these 5 signs surprised you most? Fatigue, cold intolerance, constipation, skin and hair changes, or cholesterol and pulse? Or tell me your age and the one change you have noticed in your body that no one has explained well. I read every single comment.